She believes she's in control because she left. She thinks walking away puts the ball in her court. But here's the twist. The real power begins the moment you say nothing. No texts, no calls, no explanations. Just silence. And that silence doesn't fade. It lingers. It plants questions in her mind she never planned to ask. Because when a man pulls back, not to play games, but to protect his peace, the entire dynamic changes. In this video, we explore the psychology of what happens when you don't react, don't chase, and don't try to fix what she broke. Instead, you vanish into your focus, and your absence becomes the loudest thing she hears. Point 1. The echo begins. She walked away expecting noise, messages, calls, explanations. Instead, she met stillness. It unsettled her because silence from a man who once cared deeply doesn't feel empty, it feels powerful. This is where the shift begins. Not in arguments or closure talks, but in stillness. A Stoic man knows, when someone leaves, they've made a choice. Your role isn't to chase, it's to respect that choice. So you stay quiet, not out of pride, not out of revenge, but because you value peace over performance. She scrolls through her phone expecting to see your name. Days pass, nothing. Her confidence starts to crack. Was she really that sure you'd come back? Why haven't you tried? Did you move on? Or, worse, did you realize you deserve better? Your silence isn't passive, it's intentional. You're not waiting for her. You're recalibrating, rebuilding, focusing on what you can control. Your mind, your peace, your direction. She expected a storm. You gave her calm. She expected resistance. You gave her acceptance. She thought she'd be missed on her terms. Now she's the one questioning herself. Point 2. Emotional gravity shifts. You used to orbit her, checking in, caring, giving your energy freely. Now you're gone, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, without your gravity. She floats in uncertainty. A Stoic man knows the strongest move isn't always holding on. It's knowing when to release, when you pull back. She feels the emptiness. The emotional silence is louder than any words. When you were present, answering her texts, showing up even when she was distant, you were her anchor. But when you stop pouring into someone who can't meet you where you are, something changes. In you and in her. Suddenly, she's unsure of her place. The attention she took for granted is gone. The comfort of knowing you'd always be there has vanished. Now she feels a kind of weightlessness that isn't freeing. It's unsettling. This is the real transformation. You didn't withdraw to punish her, you withdrew to protect yourself. And in that space, she begins to understand what your presence truly meant. She begins to notice the contrast. Your silence acts like a mirror, reflecting the emotional noise she never acknowledged before. Think of it as emotional gravity. You were the one grounding her, even when she didn't admit it. But now you're not chasing, not reacting, not explaining yourself, and she feels the drift. That feeling lingers. She rereads old messages. She wonders what you're doing. She checks your profile, hoping for a sign you're still orbiting. But the stillness haunts her far more than any dramatic goodbye ever could. So stay silent. Not as a game, not from bitterness, but as an act of self-respect. Because when a man reclaims his gravity and stops centering someone who didn't value his presence, he becomes the one who truly changes the dynamic. She may have walked away, but you walked inward, and that's the shift she never saw coming. Point 3. Reflection replaces reassurance. She waits for the apology, the check-in, the long message explaining what went wrong, but it never comes. Now she's left alone, not just physically, but mentally. There's no one feeding her reassurance anymore. For the first time, she has to reflect instead of react. That's the power of your silence. It forces her to turn inward. Before, she was used to emotional padding. You were her safety net, always explaining, always reassuring, always holding things together, even when they were falling apart. Every conflict or distance was met with your effort to fix it. She counted on your need for closure, your habit of checking in, your loyalty. But this time, you didn't follow the script. No reaching out, no filling the space with words or apologies she didn't earn. Instead, you let silence breathe. And in that silence, something unexpected happens. She's left with her own mind. What hits her hardest isn't your absence, but the weight of her own thoughts with no distractions. She thought you'd fight for clarity. Instead, you gave her uncertainty. She thought you'd beg for another chance. Instead, you chose dignity. That's where Stoicism changes everything. You didn't go quiet out of spite, you went quiet out of strength. As Marcus Aurelius said, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. You didn't match her chaos with chaos. You answered it with composure. When you pull back, you remove the noise, the drama, the push-pull cycle, and in that emptiness, she starts to hear something new. Her own guilt, her own doubts, her own regret. Not because you forced her to feel it, but because your absence created space for it to surface. And here's the most powerful part. You're not waiting for her to return. You're not playing games. You're living, growing, healing. You've redirected your energy back to yourself, your purpose, your peace. When a man does that, walks away without bitterness, respects her decision without resistance, it leaves a mark. A deep one. So let her reflect. Let her wonder. Let her feel what it's like when a man no longer proves his worth with words, but protects it with silence. Because that silence doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means everything is finally starting. The illusion of control breaks. She thought she could leave and you'd still be there when she came back. Maybe not immediately, but eventually. Your silence shattered that illusion. You didn't fight for a place you were no longer welcome. That's not weakness. That's self-respect. As the Stoics say, don't explain yourself. Your actions are your truth, and your action was withdrawal. Many women don't walk away because they've stopped caring. They walk away because they believe they have time. They expect a man's presence to remain even in absence. They assume he'll wait, that when the silence gets too heavy, he'll reach out, that eventually, he'll prove his love by not giving up. But when you stay silent, not from anger, but from dignity, you break that pattern. You force her to confront a reality she never planned for. Maybe he's really gone. Picture her late at night, scrolling through old texts, expecting to see something new, something soft, something that says, I still care, but there's nothing. Days pass, weeks, the familiar comfort of your energy is gone, and with it, what she thought was control. That's when the illusion breaks. That's when reality sets in. That's when your absence starts to weigh more than she ever expected. A Stoic man doesn't chase. He doesn't plead. He doesn't convince someone of his worth. He lives in alignment with his values, knowing that true strength is composure, and sometimes, composure means letting go with grace. You didn't create drama. You didn't try to win her back with noise. You let your absence speak, and it's speaking volumes now. Your silence isn't punishment. It's a different kind of presence, a quieter one. And when the illusion of control breaks, she realizes something powerful. You weren't waiting. You were evolving, so ask yourself, are you clinging to someone who left, or becoming someone she never expected to lose? In a small village, a cat named Whiskers discovered a magic fish in a pond. The fish promised 3 wishes in exchange for its freedom. Whiskers wished for endless fish, a cozy bed, and a bell that rang softly. The fish granted all 3 wishes, and swam away, leaving Whiskers content and purring in the sun, because it carried weight. While others rushed to speak, to prove themselves, to fill the air with charm. You didn't. You chose restraint. Stillness, letting absence do the talking. That's not easy. It takes discipline and belief in your own worth. Stoicism isn't about being emotionless. It's about being unshaken. You could have texted, you could have begged, you could have explained. Instead, you stood in the fire of uncertainty and said nothing. Why? Because peace is never found by chasing chaos. You don't prove your value by pleading. You reveal it by letting her feel the silence she created. Months later, she's sitting across from someone who talks too much, who listens too little, who tries too hard, and her mind drifts to you. To your calm, to the way you never had to impress, how your presence was grounded, not scattered. And she realizes how rare that is. Your silence didn't just speak, it created contrast. You're not the echo. You're the stillness after the noise, not the performer, the presence that needs no stage. That's the kind of man who's remembered, not because he demanded it, but because his absence reminded her of everything his presence once gave. The doubt creeps in. She told herself leaving was right, that it would bring her clarity, control, maybe even peace. Maybe she thought you'd chase. But days turned to weeks, and your silence only deepened. And that's when the question started. Why didn't he try to win me back? Was he stronger than I thought? Did I misread him completely? Your silence wasn't empty, it was full of meaning. No apologies, no drama, no attempts to convince, just stillness. And in that stillness was a mirror showing her not just your composure, but her own uncertainty. A Stoic man doesn't fight for a place that no longer welcomes him. He walks away not from lack of care, but from peace with losing what isn't meant for him. That's what shakes her, not anger, not tears, but stillness. She may meet men who say all the right things, but crumble under pressure. Then she'll remember you, the one who didn't beg, didn't fold, didn't chase. Your silence wasn't surrender, it was self-control. It honored her decision and your dignity, and that's rare. So if you're wondering whether your silence matters, it does. It plants seeds of reflection where she expected chaos. It rewrites the story without a single word. Your growth disturbs her comfort. You didn't just vanish, you leveled up. You became sharper, healthier, more focused. While she chased fleeting highs and hollow validation, you quietly built yourself stronger habits, a purposeful life, and a calm that no longer needed her approval. The man she expected to crumble didn't beg, explain, or chase. He evolved. That unsettles her more than silence ever could, because the man she left no longer exists. You outgrew the space she walked away from and stopped showing up where you were merely tolerated. Now your path is lined with discipline, purpose, and peace, the kind that rattles the noise she surrounds herself with. This is real stoicism. No loud revenge, no dramatic gestures, just quiet, consistent transformation. You didn't grow to prove her wrong. You grew to stop betraying yourself. She thought your absence meant pain, confusion, or waiting for her clarity. What she didn't expect was your peace. A peace that says, I chose myself. And the more you grow in silence, the louder that truth echoes in her mind. She peeks at your profile, expecting sadness, but finds strength. You look like a man who's made peace with the past and is now sculpting his future. That's intimidating. To someone who thought they had control over your value, your silence wasn't passive, it was intentional. It gave you space to become the man you were always meant to be, rooted in self-respect, driven by purpose, and unmoved by drama. She starts talking to herself. Your silence forces her to fill in the blanks. Was he angry? Did he care? Did he ever love me? What began as her relief turns to doubt. She replays conversations, overthinks your last look, searches for hidden meaning in your absence. Imagine she walks into your old cafe, orders the drink you teased her about, and checks her phone. Nothing. That's when it hits her. She expected you to reach out, even just once. But you didn't. Now she wonders if she wasn't as unforgettable as she thought, or worse, that you're stronger than she believed. Your silence is not punishment. It's presence, the presence of a man who doesn't chase what walked away. She tests the water, a meme. I hope you're well. A like on your story. These are not love, they're breadcrumbs. Small pokes to see if you'll bite. She left, but expected the door to remain cracked. A backup plan. If you respond, she knows she still has you. If you don't, she starts wondering. A Stoic man doesn't chase bait. He responds with reason, not impulse. He doesn't withhold out of spite, but because he values his peace more than recycled chaos. In a world addicted to instant replies, holding your silence isn't cold, it's power. Emotional validation and the power of silence. A man who can sit in silence becomes unforgettable. She might tell herself you're playing games, but deep down, she knows it's not a game. It's growth. That breadcrumb she dropped didn't pull you back because you're no longer standing where she left you. You've outgrown the old version of yourself, the one who needed to be needed, who confused attention for affection, and mistook noise for connection. Now you value depth over distraction, peace over performance, and genuine connection over emotional tests. So when she tests the waters again, stay still, stay firm. If she wants to reach you, let it be with substance, not signals. Let her see that the man who once would have jumped has finally learned to stand. Before we go further, reflect. Have you ever mistaken a breadcrumb for a comeback? Have you ever replied, not because it gave you peace, but because it gave you hope? If this resonates, drop a comment below or type stillness is strength. You become the mystery once. She knew everything, your thoughts, your schedule, your feelings. Now, she knows nothing, and that vacuum becomes haunting. Who is he with? What is he doing? Why do I still care? When she walked away, she thought she'd keep control. Maybe she imagined you'd check in, post something cryptic, or reach out after a few days. Instead, you vanished not in bitterness or spite, but in quiet self-respect. She scrolls, waiting for you to slip, but you don't. That silence doesn't just confuse her, it consumes her. A grounded man doesn't explain his every move, or correct the assumptions others make. His value isn't up for negotiation. She used to have unlimited access to your time, thoughts, and warmth. Now, it's all behind a locked door she no longer holds the key to. Curiosity turns into obsession. The paradox. You didn't change to impress her, you evolved to honor yourself. You withdrew not to provoke a reaction, but to protect your peace. And that's why you're unforgettable. When you stop broadcasting your emotions, you become a mystery, and mystery, paired with peace, is magnetic. Now she's replaying old conversations, scrolling through old pictures, wondering if she misjudged. You, the man she thought would crumble, didn't just survive, he transformed. Because you offer no updates, she has to imagine them. An imagination fueled by silence is more powerful than any explanation. Conclusion: silence is not retreat. It's not weakness. It's a message, a mirror, and a movement. When you stop chasing and start honoring your peace, you stop being the man waiting for closure. You become the man she didn't expect to lose and can't stop thinking about. If this message hit home, type "my silence is my power" in the comments. And if it gave you clarity or strength, hit that like button so more men can walk this path of discipline, growth, and peace. Stay disciplined, stay calm, protect your peace.